And we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford. Come right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break. Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there that's all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you could like, share, subscribe, follow, or do whatever it is that you can to support us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, of course, the great folks at LakersBall.com and at Lakerholics.com. Go ahead and support those great Laker-centric places right there for you on the internet at LakersBall.com and, of course, Lakerholics.com. Our good friends now at the Upside Swings podcast. Go ahead and give them a like, a follow. Go ahead and do whatever you can to check them out wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, speaking of podcasts, our good friends at the Hoop Heads Podcast Network. And, of course, my good friend, Mr. Joe Soro, the controversial one indeed. Go ahead, if you're in the Southern California area and you want your lawn transformed, go ahead and do so today at Sinblades with the Y, sinblades.com. Well, I will tell you, still a lot of great stuff in the NBA going on. It's Gerald Glassford once again. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Hopefully the world's greatest Lakers chat room will go ahead and start going and send those messages of peace, love, and NBA news, everything that's going on right there for you, right there in the chat room. Hopefully we can get that started here in a sec. But a lot of stuff still going on with the Lakers going into tomorrow night's game, 1-5, or if you're listening to it, it will be the same day on Wednesday night's game. Will be coming up here soon, but going in at 1-5. Rough start to the season so far, but they are coming off a victory against the Nuggets. Here today to talk about that, the coaching change, which we talked about yesterday as far as the Brooklyn Nets being on the downswing. The final blow has been, as far as thrown for Steve Nash, and look who's going to be replacing him, none other than Ime Udoka, which is, I guess, garnered a lot of controversy from what I've seen in the notes and the messages and things of that nature. So I'll be talking about that, and hopefully he will as well. Plus, as our draft aficionado, yes, the confrontational one, Joe, it is you, Ox1947. It is indeed. I guess you're the controversial one, not the confrontational one. Got a little different on that, but you've been known to confront people from time to time. But I will say right now that there's still a lot going on in the NBA. Again, like I said, a coaching change has already been taking place in Brooklyn. Plus, as well, I wanted to go ahead and talk about the Thompson Twins. No, not the 80s rock group, something much different, but it is two guys, twins, that are actually going to be very highly ranked after what was going on with their workout day that happened recently with Overtime Elite. Want to go ahead and get the 4-on-1 on that. And who better to talk about that than the good man indeed? You got to go ahead and check him out on the Upside Swings podcast. It is Stone Hansen. Stone, great to have you here. Appreciate everything that you've done for us in the past, and looking forward to a great conversation as a fellow Lakers fan right here on today's program.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. I lost count of how many times this is now, but probably got to be close to like 10 now.
Yep.
Always a blast to be on, and can't wait to vent about the Lakers.
Absolutely, indeed. And yes, we're going to get everything started here in the chat room as well. Nothing says, Joe's already started on the Ime Udoka thing. And I know when we have our post game tomorrow night, Joe will have plenty to say about that. Joe, I will make sure I give you a ton of time to go ahead and talk about that as much as you want. And I know that we're going to touch on it today as well, because I know it's something that a lot of people on social media have either asked me or talked about in regards to the back and forth on Ime Udoka being hired by the Brooklyn Nets. But first off, my friend, it is the Lakers, because I know that we had an NBA-centric show yesterday, and we were criticized for not touching on the Lakers until about an hour and a half in. That's why it's an NBA-centric show that we do once a week. So I'm going to start off first, since it's back to the Lakers primarily. Back to you, my friend. Again, 1-5 to start the season, struggling with their offense. Defense has been top 10 so far, which is a plus. The offense has been at or near the bottom on every statistical category so far. The three-point shooting until Sunday's game was absolutely atrocious and almost record-setting as far as how bad it was. Your thoughts on the season so far, and can they take Sunday's win as maybe a foundational thing going forward to a lot more positive things?
Yeah, I've not been super pleased with, obviously the start of the season. And I think a lot of people could have foreseen this coming, having just viewed their off season and the changes they made, but not much of them changing in regards of the skill set that are coming in. A lot of guys still can't shoot. They might be younger, but they don't really fit around our two pillars. And yeah, I mean, it was great for a win. Westbrook's been playing a lot better these past two games coming off the bench than he has the first five or so games when he started. And uh, that said, I think you still have to really be looking to move Westbrook. And hopefully the thing to build on from that win is that maybe Westbrook is actually some sort of value to whatever team trades for him and not just an automatic buyout. But I think in order for this team to really go further in the playoffs and maybe even have a shot to go, deep in the playoffs, they have to move Westbrook and open up that financial flexibility in order to be able to build around the skill sets of LeBron and Anthony Davis.
So you still see the team as a playoff team in its current structure, or even close to a playoff team, but with the right trade. I know that on the Adrian Wojnarowski pod, that Miles Turner was basically begging for him to be traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, which was, again, kind of curious, the fact that he currently plays for the Indiana Pacers. And usually you don't hear that kind of blunt talk, at least out in the open like it was. But your thoughts on this, my friend? I mean, where do the Lakers stand? You don't think that the current roster makeup is going to go ahead and get the Lakers in a position where they can at least sneak into a play-in spot and go from there?
I think that's where this roster currently is. I think we're probably battling for a 9th or 10th seed to get into that playoff seeding as currently constructed. But I think ultimately that the rumored Pacers deal is, I think, probably the best option that there currently is, and gives the Lakers the best chance to go deeper into the playoffs. If that's still available or on the table, I'm giving both picks to go for it. I've always sort of been of the mindset that if you have an opportunity or any sort of window to really go for a championship, you just need to go all in and put all your chips in and hope for the best. And I think Miles Turner and Buddy Hield are sort of the best available assets to help us do that. So that's sort of where I would turn. You heard, obviously, Miles Turner. Not many guys blatantly ask basically for a trade out in the public to a specific team. And Miles certainly pretty much came as close as he can to doing that on the Woj pod. I think Hield is a tremendous fit. One of the best, shooters in our league. And being able to have him on this team obviously helps a massive amount. So that's where I would be looking if I am Rob Pelinka in the front office. And I think that's the move they need to do. Prolonging it doesn't really make sense for anybody.
So if they do get Hield and Turner in a trade, because as an individual who loves the draft and follows it as closely as you do, I've always thought, in fact, I know we touched on this before in brief, and you were kind of not as affirmative and defined on it as you are now. I know that losing those two picks was kind of, for me, a little bit interesting as far as you saying that, because, again, you are such a draft aficionado, but you see them getting Turner and Hield if they do. Hello, Richard. Hopefully all is well is well with you as well. Appreciate you joining our chat and watching what we're doing here at the Lakers Fast Break. But Stone, let me ask you this. So you think you see the pendulum and the meter going up really high if the Lakers get Turner and Hield? You see them as a strong contender once they make that trade?
I'm not sure I'd quite put them in at contender level with, like the Bucks or teams like that. But I think that the West is a lot more open than I think a lot of people sort of realize. The Clippers are perpetually hurt. I think that the Nuggets they're a really good team, can they go deep in the playoffs? That's sort of yet to be seen. The Mavericks are there, but everything is so heliocentric and reliant upon Luka. I think there's an opening for a team to possibly, make it out of the West and surprise some people. And I think with Hield and Turner, they have as good a chance as anybody. Whether they can, finish that off in the finals is maybe a different story, but I do see the West as pretty open, and I think that Hield and Turner give the Lakers the best opportunity to come out of the West as an A trade.
You're not at all concerned about the fact that he's very up and down as far as a player? Because remember, look at his points per game career wise. It's not, what's that, 13, I think 12 or 13 points a game. You saw the great performance when he came back from the injury. And then last night after the Woj pod, he gave you a sparkling 7 right there in the starting lineup, which is not all that great. But the fact that he got injured again to start off the season, I mean, he mirrors in so many ways as far as the fragility that Anthony Davis has been accused of so much. In fact, being called street clothes and things of that nature. So getting Miles Turner would probably make a lot of people like me very uneasy as well.
Yeah, I think
gotta watch out for those ball boys.
yeah. Ball boys apparently are the biggest danger for Miles Turner. But having a healthy Davis and Turner is not really what you want to pin your hopes and dreams on when both those guys are pretty injury prone. When healthy, they're awesome defensive players. I think both are probably in consideration for all defensive guys, especially Davis. And but health is a big factor. I just don't really see another trade that outdoes that potential of that starting lineup. Obviously, there's other rumored deals with the Jazz and the Spurs as well. And I don't know if you want to touch on those, but I don't see the same level of upside with either of those trades that this Pacers thing affords you. Again, there's a lot of ifs and ands to go with it. A lot of dominoes have to fall your way if you're the Lakers. Things have to break your way to be able to get as far as you can, especially with injuries. I'm not denying the fact that Turner's injury prone by any means, but I think that a fully healthy lineup just affords you the best chance possible. And if you're the Lakers and you have an aging LeBron and Anthony Davis, he's playing great and seems to be appeared not super healthy at this point. He's always grabbing his back every other play.
You and Blue Magic caught the same thing right there.
If you can get Turner even, I mean, that's the other thing. Him and Turner.
Wouldn't it be so funny though if we get him and they're both grabbing their back at the same time?
Yeah, but it would not be ideal for sure. But maybe that affords one of them to play a few games and the other one to take a couple games off. They could sort of switch off and on throughout the regular season. You probably don't need both of them every single game. So there's more flexibility with it. And Buddy Hield is just an awesome shooter. That's honestly, if I'm the Lakers, I'm probably more excited to get Buddy Hield than I am Miles Turner, even though I think Miles Turner is a better player.
Well, I think now that we see the season the way it's played out right now with the atrocious shooting, the fact that we're in the top 10 in defense, I guess, like you said, with Miles Turner, that's getting him, a grade to fill up a position of need. But Buddy Hield, if he can continue to shoot like that, although Joe in the chat has always said, once you become a Laker, you got to go ahead and decrease your percentage by 3 to 5 points simply because you're a Laker. But I will say that he's been shooting very well. His defense would not be as much of a concern because of the fact that the Lakers are playing good team defense right now.
Yeah, they're still last time I checked, at least they're still like a top 3 defensive team. That end of the ball has not really been much of a concern for them. And adding Miles Turner, even if he plays 50 games, is only going to bolster that number for you. Buddy Hield's been really excellent in Indiana on both ends of the ball, honestly. And he's never been much of a defender, but he's really played very hard for the Pacers. And with the other guards there, you have, like you mentioned, the rest of the defense surrounding him with Pat Beverly too. It's less of a concern for me. So the Pacers are sort of the deal I'm definitely looking at if I'm Rob Pelinka in the Lakers front office. Even though those other deals are the rumors are still swirling.
They are swirling indeed, and most likely they'll continue to swirl for some time to come as long as the Lakers have those 2 picks and they haven't moved it yet. But once again, it is Stone Hansen. You got to go and check out what he's doing today at the Upside Swings podcast. So let's say the Lakers, who have had that Indiana deal on the table for, I don't know, just seemingly all summer and now into the fall, all these months, still are not interested in going ahead and taking it. Is there another direction you feel that the Lakers can take? Because on last night's show, I did talk with Joe and Sean Grice about possibilities of some teams that are not performing well out of the gate, that are kind of struggling, like Miami, like Philadelphia, like, let's say, Brooklyn, with some players on their teams that could possibly help the Lakers, might be actually interested in possibly some fire sales going forward.
Yeah, I think for any of those moves, you probably have to wait until January because a lot of these new signings
Yes.
have that moratorium period, and none of those teams are probably interested in Westbrook playing for them at this point. So I think you're probably waiting till January for more things to open up, but there's definitely rough starts happening with the Nets. That's a team with a lot of players that could potentially help the Lakers if they were to do a fire sale before the deadline, that I'd be looking at. Certainly, the 76ers have a couple of guys. So there's teams that have really bad issues to begin this season. The Wolves, too, are another team that seem to have sort of a weird mojo going on. So different teams definitely to track if you're the Lakers and see how things progress for them and what other bench players or rotational players are out there for them. But at this point in time, you probably have to wait until January to see what opens up, and things could change by then. And if you're the Lakers, I don't think you want to wait that long to make a move. I think by that point in time, your season's probably determined if you're the Lakers on what's being capped for you and where you are in the standings. So I think we keep hearing this like 25 game analysis. Pelinka wants to wait until we get that far to see how we are looking. The longer you wait, I think that just the more pressure you put on the rest of the team to keep winning games. I think you want to just put yourself in position to win as many games as possible and moving Westbrook. I'm not trying to harp on Westbrook. I know people don't want to pile on him, but in order to progress, they have to move that contract. And I think the sooner you do it, the better if you're the Lakers.
Absolutely. Well, they do have some minor trade assets in both Nunn and Walker the Fourth at around $6.5 million because they both got the MLE in successive years. And then you have, of course, Patrick Beverley, who has also struggled out of the gate offensively. Defensively, he's provided a very much needed punch to the backcourt defense, but his offense has been very suspect because even his shooting, which was at a career low last season, looks like it's gotten even worse. So that's actually very, very troubling for someone who's getting older, because usually as you get older, as you and I have talked about this before, the better your shot is supposed to be getting as your athleticism goes down, as your ability to go ahead and be able to guard people out on the perimeter goes down. At least your shot is supposed to get better as you get older, and that does not seem to be the case for Patrick Beverley.
Yeah, and that's going to continue to be a thing for them throughout the season. We're not as old as we were last year, but the other thing with this team is we're not very deep either. Like we're starting Troy Brown during games, and I was a massive Troy Brown fan coming out of Oregon. Obviously did not live up to my expectations.
No.
And probably shouldn't be starting for any NBA team, even though he might be an okay bench player in certain contexts. But this is not a very deep Lakers team. So, if Anthony Davis goes out for an extended period of time, Damian Jones is not a very good NBA player. Thomas Bryant, when healthy, which he rarely is very suspect defensively. So there's a lot of holes to fill with this team in a lot of aspects if any injury happens. So The other thing is I understand, why people want to do like a Jazz or Spurs trade, maybe get 3 pieces instead of 2. But yeah, there's a lot of things wrong with this roster, just more than just the shooting.
Well, I think I mentioned it to you when last time you were on the show, and plus I've mentioned it several times since, that the Lakers 3 through 15 might have the worst depth than any other team in the NBA. I think it's close between them, and I would have normally said San Antonio, but they're 5-2. I would have said Utah, but they're 6-2.
So. Yeah, both those teams have a lot of guys, and it's just sort of do it by committee, and they want to play hard for each other. This team is apart from just not fitting well, they just don't have a lot of good players, for lack of a better term. There's not a lot of depth on this team, and if Lonnie Walker's not shooting it well, then you're just leaving it down to LeBron and Anthony Davis to carry the scoring load most of the time, unless Westbrook shoots like he did last game against the Nuggets. So there's not a lot of reliability with this team, and not a lot of depth either. So I think the big thing that Pelinka seems to want to do is have open cap space going into next summer, and I think that's also playing a part in terms of why he's hesitant to make a Westbrook deal, because a lot of these trades have longer term money coming back to us, and he wants more of that flexibility for the summer. But I'm not sure he's going to really want to come to this team if we don't have any other pieces in place. So there's a lot of things to consider for the Lakers, and this is a big mess of a puzzle that they're going to have to start putting the pieces together, because right now there's too many components missing.
There are too many components missing indeed. But once again, it's Stone Hansen from the Upside Swings podcast. Please go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the Upside Swings podcast. If you need your fix on the NBA, especially NBA draft, our good friend as well, Mr. Rafael Barlow, does his thing. Michael Weisenberg always does his thing. But Stone Hansen is just as good. So you got to go ahead and check him out today at the Upside Swings podcast with the whole crew there. I've been on that show before. They've actually allowed me on that show before, which I thought was in itself was, quite incredible. But okay, you can let me on there. You let me go ahead and speak, and I had a great time. This is the Upside Swings podcast. Go ahead and check it out today where you get your podcast. But final thoughts on the Lakers before we get to the NBA news and the Thompson twins. The thing is with the Lakers, I just see them right now needing more, much more than Hield and Turner. I really think that, I know the adage, okay, just get LeBron in the playoffs and everything will be okay, because we saw a hint of that in 2021 when they were, the 8th seed and leading the Phoenix Suns. I'm not sure that lightning can strike twice. I think that, again, the lack of depth on this team requires more than just one move to get it done.
Oh, yeah. And if I'm being honest, I don't see the consecutive moves in place to really get us there. And I'm not, even if there are those moves available, I'm not confident in this front office in making the correct decision. So there's a lot of dominoes that have to fall the Lakers' way, I think, in order to get back to that 2020 magic that we had. And hopefully things turn around by next year, but I don't see a whole lot changing for us. Even if we do make a big move, it definitely increases our chances, but just so many things have to fall our way.
Blue Magic, Joe Soro, Richard, you've all been great in the chat so far. I will say that, again, when it comes to making a trade, there is no perfect trade for the Lakers. I know that, I sound sometimes spoiled Lakers fan when I go into that. It's like, well, he has issues and this guy has issues and that guy has issues. I know the Charlotte trade that you brought up, Richard, as far as in the chat room, those guys aren't perfect either. Hayward has never looked the same 100% consistently since he injured his foot in such a horrific fashion. Rozier gets hurt every now and then, but he's also been a player that has been replaced on more than one occasion as a starting lead guard after he moved himself over from Boston. So I don't know. I just think, and plus the fact that if you go and make a Charlotte trade for PJ Washington, who has played well this season, I will give you guys that. He has played well this season. Also as well for Gordon and Rozier. that one's just so hard for me to go ahead and say yes to, because you commit to so much more money on the back end of those deals, and you're expecting that same kind of productivity next year and the year beyond.
Yeah, I think, all three of those players would help us. But you are committing to long-term money, and you have to be pretty confident that that team is the team that you're going to want moving forward. I That's tough. I would have to think on that. I actually like that deal, but I don't know how much the Hornets would honestly. As much as it would probably make sense for them to collect the picks that they can, I don't know if they see themselves as a tanking team. I feel like they are trying to continue to progress as a team, and as crazy as it sounds, win as many games as they can.
Well, they're 3-4 right now as we speak.
Yeah, and that's without LaMelo or Rozier, surprisingly, because Dennis Smith Jr. has been the renaissance for them. But yeah, I don't know if they see themselves as the tanking team that they probably should be. Even though that deal makes some sense for the Lakers.
Your guy Mitch Kupchak at it again. Where's Timothy Mozgov when you need him? So there you go. Of course, we're finally getting off all those contracts. We finally got off all the Luol Dengs and all the Timothy Mozgov's contracts. Finally got that in the past. But you know what? Dealing with Mitch Kupchak again, who knows? But that's just the thing. There's no perfect trade for the Lakers. There's no 100% track history of health, of good, favorable contract that we're going to be able to get in replacement for whatever you want to go ahead and trade for Russell Westbrook's salary and 1 or 2 picks. I just don't think there's a perfect trade there. There's always going to be some caveat. Like Laker Tom and you have said that I guess the best trade out there still is the Buddy Hield, Miles Turner trade. It's just that the thing is, for me, how much farther do you move the needle upwards when it concerns this trade for the Lakers as a contender, that you're sacrificing the future beyond AD and LeBron?
I mean, that's a tough question. I think, like I've said, I try to just view it from the perspective of you have LeBron and AD, and you just have to try and win as much as you can with them. Really, ultimately, if I had my say in how the Lakers were ran, I would like to trade both AD and LeBron and stock up on picks. That's probably not a popular opinion, but I would start the rebuild now because I don't see really a path out of this hole that they've dug themselves in. But even if they keep those picks, how confident are we in this front office that they're going to make the right ones, that they're going to make picks that set us up for the future, or that will be bad enough by that time? Who's to say that we don't get a couple guys that help us win, and we're in this mediocre spot that the Spurs have been in for 5 years, and we continually get the
right now we're not pick in a mediocre spot.
Yeah, but a lot of things can change. It's difficult for me to predict the future that far out, and I'd just try and win as much as I can. But that's just me. But like I said, ultimately, I'd restart the build. I'd start the rebuild now.
Well, Joe has said it best that the next 3 games, it's the Lakers homestand. They're playing teams that they can win out and they can beat and can come out of this by next Sunday with a 4-5 record. If that's the case, it looks more palpable. It looks more attractive. It looks more like the fact that the Lakers are competitive. Do you see it going that way, or do you see something different? Because if it is different, then I think the Lakers need to start readjusting if they come out of it like 1-8 or 1-2-7. I think they do need to reevaluate exactly where they are where they're at as a team.
Yeah, I think ultimately it does depend on how Westbrook plays off the bench. We've seen the past 2 games; it's worked well for them. I don't have a lot of faith that Westbrook's going to continue this level of play sustain it for the whole season. And ultimately, as bad as this sounds, I've been sort of rooting for the Lakers to lose, so it puts more pressure on a move to be made. With each loss, there's a lot more public heat that comes on the front office to make something happen.
They almost asked you to go ahead for the George Mikan presentation. Yeah, because Rob and Jeannie would not do it.
Yeah, I know. It's wild that he just got his jersey retired. That's a whole nother thing.
You and I, yeah, believe me, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think that they have to do something. Like I just don't see how you can move forward with this team for a whole season. And if they do come out like 1-8, how you were saying, I think you have to, as crazy as it may sound, start looking at Darvin Ham and how much is he really the best option for the Lakers? So far, I've not been very happy with what I've seen out of how he plays guys, certain rotations where he pulls guys from, sort of the offense that he has. I think it may
the half-court offense has been abysmal.
I think there's a reason it took him 15 years to get a head coaching job, and it may be time to. The Lakers won't do this, but I think might be better options out there.
Well, the thing is, though, they could mirror, what happened last year with New Orleans, where Willie Green got off to a terrible 1-12 start. He was on the hot seat. Then obviously we know what happened there. They had a great turnaround and actually competed very well in the first round of the playoffs against the Phoenix Suns. Do you see that happening for the Lakers at all?
Not right now.
Just trying to be positive, my friend.
I wish I could be. I don't really see that right now. I think we're worse off than we were last year, and last year we had a lot of old guys. So, but at least they sort of fit. I think that right now you just have to, sort of wait and see what happens with this little stretch. If you can make some moves, or then maybe there's some things that happen that cut your way for the buyout market. You got to pick up a couple guys there. That's what we say every year. Maybe this year is the year we get someone pretty valuable from the buyout market. Who knows? But yeah, right now, as currently constructed, I think we're probably competing for a 9th or 10th seed play-in spot.
That's not very good at all. Although, even though that's what I predicted for the team, unfortunately, at this point in time, in its current state of affairs as far as the roster is concerned. But we'll see what happens coming out of this homestand. But once again, it's Stone Hansen. You got to go ahead and check him out today at the Upside Swings podcast. The guys there really go ahead and break down the NBA and, of course, everything upcoming for the NBA draft. So please go ahead and check it out today, the Upside Swings podcast. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is the continuing situation going on in a team in as much turmoil as the Lakers, and that is the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, I did talk about it on our NBA observation show, a team that started out 2-5. They won last night. They had the real issues as far as overall defense was abysmal. They were ranked number 30, just as abysmal as the Lakers were on offense. Obviously, the controversy with Kyrie Irving, which both Joe, myself, and Sean on last night's show went almost an hour on exclusively on that topic. In fact, that enraged some of our Lakers fans of why weren't we talking about Lakers and more of this stuff that's going on as far as thoughts and opinions on the Kyrie saga. But it was something that we need to go ahead and get off our chest and allow us to go ahead and express our thoughts on that. But your thoughts on what's going on there? Kevin Durant looking like somebody that was kind of maybe seeing the future anyways, because he wanted the GM and the coach gone. And, well, today he got his wish as Steve Nash parted ways with the Brooklyn Nets. So funny how they did that after a victory that he's, out and about like that. So he is out. And wouldn't you know it, Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania both reporting that who is coming on in? None other than the beleaguered former coach of the Boston Celtics, a guy who was actually suspended by the Celtics and still cashing a paycheck from them. None other than Ime Udoka, who, again, had the allegations and all the troubles in regards to a relationship and a unauthorized relationship that he had while a coach of the Boston Celtics. Your thoughts on this, my friend, because it does come down to the point where they need more defense. They don't have the personnel to really do it. Ben Simmons was hopefully supposed to go ahead and be a Band-Aid to fix a lot of these defensive shortcomings, which most NBA prognosticators, including myself, saw. And unfortunately, that's not been the case. Ben Simmons has really been mediocre Ben Simmons at best, which is not what they needed to start out the season. Your thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets and their head coaching situation with Ime Udoka I have some thoughts on it, and I'll go ahead. I know they've been asked to go ahead and share thoughts on it, but you let me know your thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets and their interesting situation, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably happy for the Lakers. It's giving you a little bit of a shield for not being the complete meltdown of the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, this has just been an abysmal start for the Nets. I think the first few games, it was sort of all the focus was on the Lakers and how bad they've been shooting, and it sort of gave the Nets a bit of a shield. And then over last weekend, obviously with the post game interviews and losing to a Pacers that didn't even have Miles Turner, uh, when you have two top 10 scores probably in the league, there's just a lot of bad things going on there. I think you hired the coach involved in the most drama over the offseason for the most drama filled team. Not a good mix. Even not even getting into the thoughts on if he should be in the league or not. So there's a lot of things going on at the Nets they have to figure out. I'm not firing Steve Nash. Coaches are always the scapegoat for poor starts or poor performance. They're the first in line to be gone.
Well,
I'm
he
not
just
sure
never
any.
really panned out as a head coach. He was never.
I'm not sure any coach would have, honestly, with this team. I think
Yeah.
there's too much animosity between within the locker room to get anything to gel together.
Yeah.
He had a lot of questionable moves during his time with the Nets, I think, in terms of how he's gotten these guys to play. But I also think it's sort of a mix of both, where this is just a bad locker room, and you have to do something to change it. They obviously tried to work it out over the summer and make amends and say that we're gonna try to put everything behind us and make this happen. Obviously, that hasn't worked out because you just got your coach fired, and Katie does not look like he wants to be there any game. If you look at his body language,
Oh, I
despite the
just want a
fact,
correction. They're 2-6 after they lost to the Bulls tonight at home.
yeah, that's wild. Katie looks like he hates being there. He hates playing, even though he's putting up
He had that
usual
LeBron
Katie
look
numbers
from last year.
Yeah, he's miserable. Kyrie's played amazing pretty much until tonight. But off court, he's been equally as much of a disaster as good as he's played on the court, if that makes sense. And then Ben Simmons is probably the worst basketball he's played since he's made it to the NBA. He's fouling out. He's fouled out like 2 or 3 games now. Defensively does not look like the same guy. He has flashes of it, but he's not consistently the same guy defensively. Offensively, he's scared to go in the paint because he's so scared of shooting a free throw. There's a lot of, I think, mental things going on with them still, and they're gonna have. This is not the environment to iron those things out when you have everything else going on around them. So I think there's gonna have to be just a massive change within the locker room and internally for this team to succeed. And they're not going to go far as currently constructed, just like the Lakers, for probably different reasons, more off court stuff than on court. But ever since even Harden was there, they just did not seem like a team that liked playing with each other. And there seems to be more things going on than the public probably knows.
I'll tell you what, I'm just so happy to have you here, my friend, talking about it. I will say, well, let me ask you this. With Ime Udoka now coming on board, do you think things will change for the better? Do you think things will be more positive? I think on a defensive end, it can only get better because you saw what he helped create with Boston last year in their title, not their title run, winning the title, but their finals run per se.
I think that he's definitely, in terms of a coaching talent, a step up from Steve Nash. Again, I haven't read too much into all the allegations and everything, but it doesn't seem like the smartest move is to bring in the most controversial coach probably in the league currently for the most controversial team. That just the optics don't look great with that, and he might have better systems in place. He might be better technically as a coach. I think is going to come down to relationships and how he gels with the guys in the locker room. But from the outside looking in, it does not seem like a good match in that regard, in terms of gaining the respect of this locker room and getting them to play for each other and for him. But time will tell.
Time will tell indeed. I will just say right now, because of the fact it's been so divisive on Twitter, actually also behind the scenes here at the Lakers Fast Break, all the emails I've seen, the special notes, the things that has been sent to me on Twitter and also as well on Facebook in regards to this. We want to hear our thoughts. I know they want to hear Joe's thoughts. He's already mentioned a little bit in the chat, but I will again give Joe Soro and anybody else who comes in on the post game tomorrow night plenty of opportunity to talk about this. The thing is, though, I think that Ime Udoka, I was not surprised that this is happening. I mentioned this actually upon his not firing, but being fired because he was put on suspension, that I think he would find a job rather quickly because some team would get desperate and they didn't think that what he did was egregious enough as far as that's concerned. He had a relationship, a consensual relationship with another employee, which is actually frowned upon by the Boston Celtics organization in and of itself. No fraternization of that manner within the employees as far as that. And plus the fact that he was actually seeing someone as well for a long time that, they had I believe they've had a child together and whatnot. So yeah, that's the optics aren't good. So let's just put it out there. The optics aren't good on that, but it's not something, I guess, that's egregious enough for the Nets to say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and not look by this. We're going to go ahead and see if we can bring him in. We don't think this is a problem for us to go ahead and handle as an organization because he's already made his mistake. He's got that behind him. So I think, though, when it comes to Ime Udoka, I think that issue in regards to it, I think with the Nets, I know Joe had a particular issue, paraphrasing what he said, is that he had issues with the way the optics and how Joe Tsai was so adamant against what Kyrie Irving had put out on Twitter. And the next day they go ahead and hire someone with such a little bit of a tainted controversy himself that's just coming off it. I'm not surprised at all. I didn't think what he did would be found egregious enough by the NBA, and that he would be still a hot name in the league as far as a head coach is concerned, and that he would get a job right away. So this does not surprise me in the very least.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me with how the Nets season has gone. It's just piling on the controversy. But yeah,
I guess it's the wife of a Celtics executive, according to Blue Magic. I knew it was a Celtics employee. I just didn't know. I know she was working. I thought it was working in travel, or helping set up the travel for the team and whatnot. So
I think I don't know. I've read some things that might be even more egregious than that, but I don't have the full story, so I don't feel comfortable commenting on everything about that. It's kind of a touchy subject, obviously.
Oh yeah,
so,
to say the least.
Yeah,
in more ways than one, figuratively and
on multiple fronts. Yes. So I'm not going to get too into that, but I think just hiring someone with that much controversy when you have a team that's surrounded in it,
it's not the best thing for PR sakes.
I think there's other coaches that could have done probably equally as good a job or been equally a step up from
Quinn Snyder,
Steve Nash. Yeah, if I don't even know if Quinn Snyder would want to come out of retirement for this team, but I definitely ask him before I asked Ime. But yeah, there's a lot with this team that has to change. There seems to have been a contentious relationship between KD, Kyrie, and Joe Tsai since the summer. It seemed like KD didn't speak to Joe Tsai for several months before the season started this year. Seems that he was mad at him because Joe Tsai didn't like Kyrie or something, from what I remember. There's just a lot of, seems like, animosity and tension between those three parties, and then Steve Nash and Sean Marks, not even getting into them. So it seems like there's just a lot of people that don't like working with each other within the Nets organization. And I think it's a matter of time before they implode and you start seeing KD ask out once again and Kyrie leave not too far behind.
Once again, it's Stone Hansen. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the Upside Swings podcast. Truly an interesting story, and the plot thickens when it concerns the Brooklyn Nets and Ime Udoka now joining the team as the team's head coach, and Steve Nash has gone bye-bye. We'll see what happens if the team can get any better. Again, they're 2-6 right now, not off to the best start in the world. If it doesn't get any better, then you will probably see a fire sale, which again for the Lakers could be advantageous on getting some shooters in there. As I mentioned in the chat, I would love to see personally Joe Harris, Seth Curry. I'd love to see Kessler Edwards get a chance in some minutes as a taller wing, which the Lakers do need. So backup wing.
The fact that
I've always been fascinated by his play, Kessler Edwards, and what he could bring.
Yeah, I liked Kessler. I think I had him around 20 in his draft, and I liked him quite a bit. He seemed to struggle shooting the ball as much as he did at not as well as he did at Pepperdine last year, and at Summer League he struggled quite a bit. And Steve Nash is not even playing him, which to me is pretty wild, considering he's playing three undersized guards with Sumner, David Duke, and Patty Mills off the bench. So I think there's maybe Ime can try to integrate him a little bit more now that he's taking over and see what he can do, because you might as well at this point experiment a little bit, right? What you have is not working, so why not try something new? And hopefully we see a little bit of that with Kessler Edwards. But yeah, there's different pieces they can work around, and I think they have a lot of individual talent, but cohesively just doesn't seem to flow together.
Well, I will say that I agree with you, Blue. There was probably something working on behind the scenes for more than just one day when it concerns Ime Udoka signing. It's probably something they've been working on for a few days behind the scenes. I agree with you on that. Great comments by Richard. Crickets out there throwing the great stuff out there in the chat. Also, Richard as well. Appreciate it. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Always great to have someone that is not a Lakers fan always join us with some positive and great comments out there. You guys are really liking THT out there in Utah. Again, that's a team way it's structured. Seems to be utilizing his best talents as a driver and a penetrator, as opposed to asking him to shoot a lot from the outside and to try and defend on major wings or guards and you have those major assignments, because the Lakers, obviously with their mentality, had something different in mind for him. If you can go ahead and have him be a rotational player in that sense, it seems to be working out for you so far with THT. So I'm happy for you guys. But Cricket says, I don't understand how USA can be mad at Kyrie Irving when freedom of speech with Ime Udoka broke the team rule. I will say when it comes to Kyrie Irving, please, I will refer you to last night's show where we went off on it for an hour. We shared our thoughts on that and our opinions both for and against Kyrie Irving's tweets. And I will just leave it at that on who is for and who is against. You will have to find out by watching last night's episode or listening to it wherever you get your podcasts. Again, I'm not exactly in love with what he did myself. In fact, I'll just say that it was expressed over the course of the hour. So you can hear all that between Sean, Joe, and I on, again, yesterday's show on Kyrie Irving. I know we also talked about Josh Primo, and that's an issue as well. Stone, do you see Josh Primo and all the controversy, which, again, we talked about on the NBA Observation Show? Do you see any future for the kid at all? Do you see him writing whatever situations that he's gone on? Because it's a very sticky and very unfortunate situation, a lot of which he created himself. There was some he mentioned some trauma, so I do want to go ahead and respect that, and the mental illness that he says he's dealing with right now. But you know what he did, in as far as allegedly exposing himself to one, possibly several women, is inexcusable in and of itself.
Yeah, I think that I think if he does come back, it's going to be multiple years before that happens. Mm-hmm. Both probably best for the league and himself to stay away for a bit. He's the thing that makes me believe he may have a chance, sometime down the line, is he's so young. He came out of the draft like still barely 18. So maybe in 3-4 years times have changed and he'll be able to move on from that and have continued down basketball. But right now I think that it's best to leave him out of the league because it's probably not right to roster him on any team directly after these allegations have come out, and also it's probably not best for him to be playing professional basketball.
Focus on himself first.
Things like that. Yeah, I think there's probably higher priorities for him that need to be taken care of before he can go back to the league. So, hopefully he's able to get that help, and down the line, maybe, who knows, he'll be able to play, even if it's not in the NBA, professional basketball in some league. But yeah, I don't foresee him playing in the NBA anytime soon, really.
Cricket, right now, Josh Primo cannot shoot the three well. His statistics weren't bearing out yet, but the kid was only 19, which is why there was a possibility on somebody taking a flyer out on the kid, because he is only 19. He was actually drafted the year he was drafted, which was last year's draft, not this recent draft. He was actually the youngest individual, if I remember, when he was selected 12, as far as he was the youngest individual in the draft eligible at that time. And I think that is something where it may be an issue of maturity. I don't know. It's hard to speculate, especially with what's going on. It's not been like we talked about previously. All the information has not been put out there yet. So, again, I want the best for the kid, but also if he's done something wrong, in order to go ahead and try and rectify that, he must pay the consequences as well. So, yeah, just a tough situation going on there for San Antonio and Josh Primo.
Yeah, but they definitely seem to have found something with Jeremy Sohan, who
yes.
to make it a little bit more positive. I was
Dennis Rodman. He's looking more and more like it.
I've really liked Sohan in the draft, and I could not be happier that he landed at the Spurs, because I feel like that's just a perfect match. So even though Primo, they've moved on from him, I think that Sohan's going to make a lot of Spurs fans happy throughout the season. So
hopefully, are you predicting right now maybe he'll be not an all-defensive team, because I think that's coming within the next 3 years. Do you think he could be the defensive player of the year in 5 years?
I don't know about that, because there's always so many candidates that are great defenders. You have Evan Mobley and Chet will come back, and Wembanyama will be in the league by then. So there's going to be a lot of contenders for that title. But I definitely think he's going to be a perennial all-defensive candidate. I'll put it that way.
Once again, it's Stone Hansen. You got to go ahead and check them out at the Upside Swings podcast. Those guys covered the NBA and the NBA draft like no other. So go ahead and check it out today, wherever you get your podcast, the Upside Swings podcast. Speaking of Upside Swings, before we head on out, my friend, the Thompson twins. I actually have to do, I am going to add in a Victor question, but that's on the back end. But first, the Thompson twins of Overtime Elite, they've been very, very impressive so far in workouts, in the limited number of games that they've had right now for Overtime Elite. Overtime Elite, I believe, has something like 70 games on the books before they go ahead into the NBA draft this season, or, for all the games that they've set up as. Is that correct, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in their neighborhood?
Honestly, I haven't looked quite yet. I've been dealing with other things, but I'm starting to get back into the flow of the draft and everything, and I've definitely watched a couple other games, but I haven't mapped out all the schedules and everything.
Okay. And they did have a workout last week, if a pro day per se. Correct?
Yeah, they did. I didn't watch it, but I do know it happened. So
okay, I did read the liner notes on it, and I know that the shot is still shaky, to say the least. But what sticks out when you talk about the Thompson twins? There's a reason why they're both thought of at least in the top 10, and some have them like number 3 and number 5 as far as it's the highest I've seen them so far, as far as behind Scoot Henderson and Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue for Amen as high as number 2. And I think
really,
yeah, it's close. Scoot, you can't go wrong either way. But
I've seen Scoot live. I don't know. You're going to have to talk me a lot down that mountain. I'm sorry.
I'll try my best throughout the season on Upside Swings, but I think his game will probably do it more justice. but the biggest sell for both of them is generational athleticism is what comes to mind when I'm trying to sell them, because there is not any guards I can recall that move the way that these guys move.
And these guys are 6'7" guards at the present time. The Twins are, correct?
Yeah, 6'6", 6'7", around there. And they're so long. It's wild to watch. They, I think it was on men. There's one play recently where I think it was against Bronny's team actually, and he goes into the paint, does a quick hop step, and just floats in the air for like 3 seconds to get to the rim from like right inside the free throw line. So there's just a ton of plays like that where you're it's almost like, what am I watching at times? It's like, how is that possible? A lot of plays like that, and obviously they both struggle right now to shoot. But specifically on men, who I've watched more of, his shot has come a long way since last year. Even there's a lot of mechanical issues and things of that nature to fix moving forward. And they are both, I believe, 19, so they're not. They'll be 20, I think, by the time the draft comes around. So not super young, but not super old either. But they're defensive hounds on that end. They're both just going to wreak havoc and make a lot of plays. And because of how quick twitch athletes they are, basically any steal at the point of attack position, they're going to turn into an easy transition bucket. And they're both like really, really awesome passers and leverage their athleticism well to be able to open up creation lanes as passers. So that's sort of the quick synopsis of them. But I think as the season goes on, more and more they'll add to that shooting repertoire. And personally, I have them both top 5 right now.
There you go. That's Amen and Ausar Thompson. There again, Amanda and Ausar Thompson. They are two really. I've seen a little bit of footage on each. They're both very impressive again as shooting guard options, wing options, which I know that many of these NBA teams, i.e., the Lakers, need wings, but unfortunately, the Lakers won't get a chance to draft either of these kids, and that need I digress. No matter how bad their season is, because of course they don't even own the rights. They get to, unfortunately, have their pick swapped by New Orleans, and that makes it much more depressing.
If nothing else, I just want us to make a trade so that there's not more salt added to the wound of having to give up the number 1 pick to the Pelicans. That would just be the icing on the cake to the season, and
that would be that would be salt to the wound. But if it does go off the rails, I really think that they should consider trading AD. I think that's LeBron. Only if LeBron's not going to get traded. Only if he asked to get traded would he be traded, especially on the verge of being the scoring champ. But if it does go off the rails, I think that might start hearing the rumblings about AD being traded at some point in time this season.
Yeah, we'll see. Ideally, I kind of want LeBron to ask out just because I think it's best for the organization to start that rebuild. But yeah,
they don't want him to leave until he breaks that record.
Yeah, I don't think they want him to leave. I think they want him to retire a Laker, but
yeah,
we'll see what happens. But yeah, no shot at the Thompson twins, unfortunately.
No shot indeed, or Victor or Bronny. But before I get to my Victor question for you, Bronny James, you briefly mentioned him. He actually was somebody that was not on a whole lot of radars, was picked. Maybe I saw him as high as number 50 on the hot 100 top recruits as far as that were eligible out there as far as 4 and 5-star players. But Bronny recently has had an upswing in his play. Bronny James being the son, one of the 2 sons of LeBron James. Actually, his younger son than that is actually probably the better prospect, but need I digress. Bronny James has been playing much better recently. In fact, here in Vegas against a local school here, Bishop Gorman, he really showcased some skills as far as from long range, both on the dribble drive. He seemed to be playing a lot better with a lot more confidence. Your thoughts on Bronny James now that a lot of people may have even more interest in him, and the possibility, of course, that he might just go ahead and forego all these things as far as NCAA teams, college teams, going to anything other than just going ahead and making himself eligible for the NBA draft as soon as possible?
Yeah, I think as of now, he's a 2024 guy.
You can't reclassify?
I haven't done the research into that. I know there's a lot of people that I could ask, and I'll definitely get that answer over to you. But I think that there's certain eligibility things in terms of when he starts school and when he'd finish by that sort of determine whether he's eligible to reclassify. But he has taken a massive step forward as a shooter. Yes. I think that's probably the biggest thing for him.
Saw footage of that.
Yeah,
his stroke looked really good.
That's I think that what's mainly driving his stock upwards at the moment. I wasn't too in on him as far back as 6 months ago or so, but he's progressed quite a bit since then and has taken steps forward as a defender as well. So it's still early, definitely early, because as I said, that he's not a 23 guy as of yet. So there's room still for him to improve, and even if he was 2023, I think might be better. He might be better off staying in the 24 draft just to try to show that this is a consistent thing that he's been building upon and it's sustainable. So I think that he, is a guy who could rise potentially into the lottery. I don't see a reason not to if this sort of progression continues, but currently probably more of like a middle to back end sort of first rounder. But I think that if he continues to play like this and show teams he can sustain this, his stock's only going to drive upwards. So I've been really pleased with what I've seen, and hopefully, I'm wishing the best for him and it continues to go that way.
I will leave our final conversation as one of our draft gurus that stops by the show, Stone Hansen from the Upside Swings podcast, with the final thought, or your final thought, on Victor himself, Victor Wembanyama, who I saw twice in person here in Henderson, a suburb of Las Vegas, and was absolutely tremendous. After this, once the second half started in that first game, he was absolutely sensational. Even in that first half, even though he was struggling with a shot, he was still able to go ahead and affect a lot of things that were going on the defensive end. So I don't want to put that in any way, shape, or form in bad context, because he was simply sensational over the course of those two games, solidified himself as by far and away one of the most significant number one choices of the last 25 years in the NBA draft. It's up there with AD, LeBron, any other major number one choices that you want to talk about there. He was simply sensational. I love Scoot Henderson too. You're not going to talk me off that number two mountain for me right now after what I saw, but number one for him, when you saw on TV, and I wish you would have been here, my friend, because you and I would have loved it. I got a chance to sit with Rafael Barlow for the second game. We sat for a while, watched him together at the first half, talked to me about his parents and, what he sees, because he's interacted with his parents, and just what a great set of parents he has. Seems like a great kid with his head on straight, and he wants to do the right thing by continuing to play and not shut it down as what was rumored or what has been approached to him and his agent. Really glad to hear that, because I think that kid has just really got star written all over him. But your thoughts on Victor? I mean, you guys have probably just on the Upside Swings podcast just mentioned it ad nauseum how great he is, but if you see him in person, it is all true. It is all very much true.
I'm sure. Yeah, I wish I was able to be there. I had other
asked you, my friend.
Yeah, I had other circumstances to tend to at the time, but
no worries, man.
Definitely, if someone has the opportunity to see Victor Wembanyama, you absolutely need to take it. I think if we try not to spend too much time on the top prospects on the Upside Swings draft, because it will turn into just a Victor Wembanyama fanboy feed, and we won't be able to stop. But we'll definitely get to him this season, and Luka Doncic was the best prospect I had ever seen, and I think Wembanyama is just right there with him, if not a little bit better as a prospect.
Well, let me put it to you this way: if he was 6'7", what I saw, he would still, for me, be the number one choice right now. And he's 8 inches taller.
Yeah. I think he's just looking at film and pictures and stuff, probably 6'5", or 7'5", excuse me.
Raphael said he was 7'4" and change was his last measurements in France.
Yeah. So pretty close around there. And he's just a phenomenal shooter. A lot of times we hear this thing with bigs, right? Like you want that unicorn all the time. You want this guy who can protect the paint, but also stretch the floor. People said it about Anthony Davis. It never really came to fruition.
So well, man. He just moves so
Yeah.
well.
A lot of times the shooting doesn't come to fruition, and he is elite as a shooter, and he's a ridiculous athlete in terms of the length, like you're saying. You can feel comfortable putting him on the perimeter full time because of how long he is to recover on everything. He's still learning to as a passer. He's still developing, but it's getting better and better. It feels like each game. He's as close to a perfect prospect, I think, as you can get. And a lot of people are going to be concerned about injuries because he's so skinny and tall, yada, yada. But for me,
he's not as skinny to me as, let's say, Chet or Pokusevski.
Yeah.
Those guys are, I think, a little bit, their bone structure is a little bit lighter framed as far as I think he can hold even more of a frame, but I think he looks stronger than those two individuals.
Yeah. And that conversation for me is really not much of a concern until it's something chronic, which hasn't been the case for any of those guys yet. So it's not something I worry about or really factor in at all. And he's so skilled as a 7'5" guy. Like those sort of guys shouldn't be making behind the back passes or
up and under. I've actually got on my YouTube channel here on the Lakers Fast Break channel. If everybody out there that's watching scrolls down to the shorts, they can actually see the short I made of Victor Wembanyama and the up and under move made by him, like looking like he's a 6'3" guard doing this stuff. It's amazing.
When I saw Chet in high school, I was like, I've never really seen something like this before. Like the closest I had seen to that was Bol Bol, and I thought Bol Bol was the next big thing.
Well, he might be playing on Orlando now. Denver might have made a mistake.
Maybe I was a little too early in saying how wrong it was on that. But I thought he was like this ultimate mover who can pass and dribble, shoot, block shots. Obviously, it didn't live up to my expectations.
Do you realize right now he's actually starting in Orlando as their shooting guard?
He's playing well. He's playing.
As their point guard.
Yeah, I think
because Ross was him and Ross in the backcourt.
Yeah,
that started. Suggs was coming off the bench and still struggling, which again was my fault because I thought he was going to be a winner for them.
Yeah, there's still time, but yeah. Bol, he's playing much better than I thought, but he wasn't the generational guy I had thought.
Yeah,
Wembanyama is that guy. Like I think that there's really nothing that you've seen quite like him, and even Bol is 3 inches shorter than Wembanyama, which is insane to put into perspective. And Bol never shot like Wembanyama did, so there's so much to like about Wembanyama. And moving forward, on Upside Swings, we're sort of doing a new format, and I'll be covering Wembanyama throughout the season, game by game. So I'm really excited.
To the NBA, they will be able to go. They're showcasing all of his games for free on the NBA channel.
Yeah. So there's plenty of reason to be excited this year and watch him if you can, because you're not going to really. He's a once in a generation player. So watch as much Wembanyama as you can, because it really is must-see TV. There's nothing that can really compare at the moment to what he does on the court. So I can't say enough good things, and without having an hour and a half to really divulge into what he does on the court, I'll just leave it at watch as much Wembanyama as you possibly can.
Well, the thing is here, I can't say too much about him because the fact is the Lakers have no shot getting him, so it just makes it that much worse.
Oh, man.
But I do have to educate the fans out there exactly what's going on with the NBA draft and just how amazing he is, because this is going to be, like you said, a generational talent and an individual starting next year that's going to be someone that's very, very much looked upon as far as maybe a historical shift for the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, Wembanyama is at the creme de la creme, but even this draft has as good a chance as any that I've covered over the past 8 or so years as being the best draft. It could be a generational draft. Like, this is legitimately a fantastic draft all the way down to even 20. So there's a lot of reason to be excited for this draft cycle.
Well, that'd be great because maybe the Lakers will be able to draft right around 20. All depends on the New Orleans season and not necessarily the Lakers season. But we'll find out what's going on with that coming up here next year. But for now, it is Stone Hansen. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the Upside Swings podcast. But before we end it out, my friend, it is your time to go ahead and pitch out what to everyone out there in the audience, what you guys are up to at the Upside Swings podcast.
Yeah, we are starting to get into the cycle, the draft cycle. College is not too far away, so we'll be delving into that, obviously. And actually, you can follow us on our Twitter at Upside Swings, and I think we tweeted out today that it was just like a 1-minute clip of sort of explaining what the season is going to hold for us in terms of our format going forward. We're also going to be be more active on TikTok. And if you don't have a lot of time, just watch little clips here and there, sort of keeping you up to date on what's happening within the draft world. So you could follow both of those places at Upside Swings, and you could follow me and any work I do outside of that as well at report_court.
There you go. Follow him today on Twitter. And of course, everything that they do right there for you at Upside Swings podcast. And of course, again, follow him on Twitter at report_court. It is Stone Hansen. Stone, great to have you here as the college season, again, starts within less than a week. We're going to be seeing a lot of action here coming up very shortly for college. It is already hot and heavy for the NBA. Changes already being made at the head coaching position. The Lakers still, their season started off rocky, but you never know what comes out of this homestand. We'll see what happens. But Stone, great to have you here as a fellow Lakers fan, talking Lakers and everything NBA draft.
Always great to be here.
Always great to have you here, my friend, and looking forward to the next time you can stop by. Thanks so much to everyone in the chat. Cricket, Richard, Blue, you guys have all been amazing. Paul, as always, appreciate you stopping by as well. Joe Soro, a.k.a. Ox1947, you know that he was not only in the chat, but he's also going to be here tomorrow night as well at the post game, because we will be back for the post game. So go ahead and check us out after the post game. You know the game is coming up tomorrow against New Orleans, of all teams, the team that owns the rights to swap their draft pick for next year. They're coming up. They're playing at the Crypto.com arena at 7:30. So go ahead and check it out. We'll be on around 10 p.m. Pacific time, going ahead with our post-game report. So for everyone out there, we truly appreciate you checking us out, watching and listening. And of course, if you have not subscribed today on YouTube, please go ahead and do so. That way you'll get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with the next great, awesome podcast that we do. In fact, we'll be back for the post game, so check it out tomorrow night right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great evening.